On what though?
We are live on YouTube. And we're going to be live on Facebook. So if you're on YouTube and you have Facebook also, please go to our channel, well, our page, Racing the Races on Facebook.
Well, so we're not on Facebook yet because I haven't figured out how to
go find us on Facebook, like the page. You can do that. And we post, we'll be posting coming up like, news and other stuff that will be on upcoming shows. So go ahead and like the page. Is Racing the Races on Facebook. Page. And we'll be live on YouTube, Racing the Races.
Keep talking because I'm trying to do the Facebook connection right now. Trying to do the Facebook right now.
All right. So Kay is on here today. Sandra is on here. We're going to be talking about all things important. Remember, we're on our series of Two Americas. And so Kay has some information she's going to share with the disability community because she's a disability advocate for children. And I think sometimes adults too. She can transition in and out. We'll talk about that, and we're going to talk about Bill Cosby. It's news. It came out today. We're on it, okay? Oh, by the way, Rumsfeld died today too.
Did you hear about Donald Rumsfeld?
Yes, he died today.
Oh wow, I'm like missing all the news.
You're working, Sandra.
Yeah. So we're on Racing the Races. We're on YouTube. Where else do you need us to go? So we're on the Racing the Races Facebook page. We're on YouTube. Streaming live right now.
Perfection. We're streaming live on Facebook also?
Yes, on the Racing the Races page.
All right. Good to go.
Yes, we are. I can see it. All right, so let's get into it, man. Like let's go first. First, let's introduce ourselves.
Yeah, we didn't introduce ourselves. You go ahead. Go ahead, and I need to start while I try to deal with the technical stuff.
First. Go ahead, Sandra, and then
I'm playing like the tech person right now, so y'all can go ahead and introduce yourselves so I can make sure everything's set up. And I will last today.
Sandra, Kay, and then me because I'm at the bottom. It's just like do this triangle thing.
So what I'm saying is, since I'm trying to do the technical stuff, I want you ladies to introduce yourself, and I'll go last.
Okie dokie, Kay, you go first.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our new YouTube page. I'm super excited to have you here. My name is Kay Jacobs Reed, as you see on the screen. I'm a 22-year veteran teacher, the mom of 2 disabled kids. I am an advocate for people with disabilities, and I also do some other a lot bit of everything on the side. But I am here to bring you Kay's Corner, which is all things up to date with what's going on in Broward County with our disability community, opportunities, things you need to know, money that's out there, pretty much everything and anything that I can get a hold of, and some updates on what's going on with Broward County schools.
Hey, so, Kate, hi, I'm Narnique Grant. Narnique, Nikki, you can call me Nikki. I am a former candidate for school board. That's how me and Kay found each other. Me and Sandra too. I am also on several different organizations as a board member and or member, self-proclaimed advocate, I guess, or activist, because I'm all about my people. See, my shirt is Black Lives Matter. So we are going to talk all things politics as well as everything in between, as Kay mentioned about her Kay Corner. And we are excited to be on YouTube. Please subscribe. Please also follow our page on Facebook because we put important information on there. And, just enjoy the ride as we go through. We are going to make sure that everything we bring to you is something that you can understand. I was watching Bob Marley last night, and one of the things he said on one of his interviews, he's like, I'm a common sense man. So everything I bring out or whatever, even a baby can understand. So that is what we're going to try to do here. Making sure that everybody, those who are not really into politics, help you to understand how politics work and help you to be more inclined to participate in the process. Because as you see at the last election, your vote truly does matter. So we're going to roll it on to Sandra. I think that she's gotten herself kind of situated, and we're going to let her introduce herself.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Yes, I am Sandra Sheffrere. I am one of the co-hosts of our show, Race and the Races. I'm a practicing attorney. I'm a professor at a local university here. I am really about all things politics. Okay. Last year I really got involved. I stepped my involvement up to a whole nother level, and that's how I was able to meet Narnique, just because I thought the 2020 elections was super important. It was beyond important. And my main focus at the time too was to really educate people and introduce people to what we know as down ballot candidates. During the presidential election years, a lot of time people are only concerned with the presidential candidate, and they don't pay attention to the local officials or the people that are running for local races. And what I needed people to understand was that they are the important ones. Those are the people that you got to call if there's a pothole in the street. Those are the people that are making decisions about your school board. If you have some sort of concern, you need to know who those local officials are in order for them to make changes in your everyday life. Not that the president doesn't impact your life, but your local officials, they literally impact your everyday life, and those candidates are important. So I spent last summer meeting and interviewing and speaking to a bunch of folks, and I hope, the videos are on YouTube. They're actually on another page that I want you to like, share, and subscribe. Is the Democratic Women's Club of Greater Broward's page. But we also want you to like, share, subscribe to our Race and the Races page, where we're going to talk about all things race, all things politics. We have Kay's Corner. She's going to let you know about disability stuff. I focus more on the caucasity of things, because we have a lot of that going on. And I had to move that away from my Democratic Club's page because of some of the things that we need to discuss.
The caucasity has to be revealed up in here, honey. We can't sugarcoat nothing. We want all the smoke, so we can't do it on certain platforms.
I'm gonna sugarcoat it a little bit, right? Because I still have other people signing my checks. You know what I'm saying? So I ain't gonna go too wild with it, but I am interested in just providing the information, and then people can at least have it and they can decide how they want to use it.
And that's why I will always have a disclaimer saying that the thoughts that I produce are not of Kay or Sandra. They're only Narnique Grant's thought, and I will always make sure that I have a disclaimer out there. That way no one gets in trouble.
You know what I'm saying? Like I said, there's some people still signing my checks.
I know. I ain't got nobody signing my checks. So I'm going to go make them disclaimers, girl. I'm going to make sure nobody get with you. All right. All right. So we're on our series of the Two Americas. And what that means is that we're talking about the differences between what Black Americans, African Americans, however you want to label yourselves, how we are treated and dealt with, and how our experiences in this country versus how the white people, I was trying to pull it back because I was going to say something I wasn't supposed to. But how the white people behave and how they live in this country and their experiences, and show the vast difference, the disproportionate, the disproportionate ways that we are incarcerated, the disproportionate ways of our mothers who are, women who are having baby Black women who die at childbirth, or, infant mortality rates, all things, everything. Actually, to be quite honest, how the differences between us. And it's important that you understand that. Why? Because it does come back to politics, because when you participate and you're part of the process, these things can change and be highlighted and be addressed. But if you're not part of the process, you will continuously see the vast difference between us. And so that's our goal. Our goal is to get you guys to be more, involved, participate, and really truly get effective change that we deserve. So last week we spoke about
last week was really good. You guys covered a range of things, from what was going on in some races of Northeast. Yeah.
Wrap it up, Kay. Tell us what we talked about, because I remember bits and pieces. It's just so much, from the time you get off and then you move on, Chauvin got his sentencing, and then, it was just like, the trauma, the trauma that we got to go through is just traumatic for us. So I can forget.
So I think when we did the show last week, Chauvin had not been sentenced yet, because we did it on Wednesday. Chauvin got sentenced on Friday, so we were not aware. We were not aware of how many years he would get.
And what's your say on that, Sandra? I mean, being an attorney, 22 years. What are your thoughts with that?
So it's not enough. It's absolutely not enough, and that's part of the two Americas that Nikki was talking about, right? Because I was actually comparing it to a case that happened in South Florida, where there are some police officers. They were involved. They were helping some drug dealers transport drugs. That's what they were doing. Nobody died. Well, I mean, you might say like maybe somebody OD'd and they died that way, but what they were doing was that they were just assisting some drug dealers in transporting drugs. The least involved individual that took a plea in that case, I believe he got sentenced to like 10 years. There was another woman that entered into a plea, another female officer that got 15 years. And the person that was really involved that went to trial, he got sentenced to 27 years in federal prison. And all he did was help a drug dealer transport drugs. Nobody's life was lost. They didn't traumatize a whole nation by people having to watch a video of somebody dying, like literally watching a person die for 9 minutes and 29 seconds. But that individual got 27 years in federal prison. And this person, I understand it's a different state, and I understand that the laws are different. But once the judge decided that he should be enhanced, like his sentence should be enhanced, I think he should have gone for the entire 40. Because at that day, he killed that man in front of children. Right. He had a duty as an officer to care for the person that he had in his custody. He neglected that duty. He ended up getting 3 other officers to help him participate in that. And then some other things that came out during the trial indicated that this person deserved absolutely no mercy, and he should have been prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. I understand that they do pre-sentencing investigation. And since it was his first offense and all of these other things, but ultimately, because of what he did and how traumatic it was, I believe he should have gotten sentenced to straight to 40 years.
And then, Sandra, can you talk about, I heard maybe a day or two ago that he was planning on taking a plea to the federal charges, but that they said the federal charges, the time would be run concurrent. So even if he pleads, he's still not going to get more time?
So that's what happened. So what, and but the federal judge can make a different decision, be like, no, we don't want your time to run concurrent. We want it to run consecutive, right? So when your time runs concurrent, basically what that means is that while you're serving time on the other charge, you're serving both times on both cases, even though they're 2 different jurisdictions at the same time. But the federal judge could be like, hell no, dog. I want you to do this time consecutive. And what that would mean is that he would not start serving his federal time until he's done with the state time. So the judge.
So if he takes the plea, the judge can still change it.
So usually, if he's going to take a plea, then he will only plead if if the state and the judge would agree to sentence him to do that time concurrently, because it's not to his advantage to plead to doing time consecutive, because basically he's going to end up serving whatever amount of time he has to do on the state case, and then when he's done with that, then start serving time on the federal case. So that's
that legal gymnastic that pisses me off.
Yeah, right? I feel like that's the two Americas.
Yeah,
I mean, that's just, it's ridiculous to me. That's that legal gymnastics that pisses me off. And these white people, the two Americas, consistently take advantage of that, or they've created it, in my opinion. And so then it leads you to think, okay, well, look what happened to Bill Cosby or whatever. It's the same thing, because if we were talking about Harvey Weinstein or whatever, that wouldn't have made news. That'd have been like, yeah, that's what we're supposed to be doing. But because it's a black man, all of a sudden, it's an issue. He shouldn't have gotten it in the first place, and this, that, and the other. Everybody got something to say, or whatever the case is. Listen, it's these legal gymnastics that just kills me. For someone who said we were all traumatized, all of us, even during the trial.
Yes,
it was a difficult thing.
Hard to watch.
People. I mean, there was campaigns out there saying, do self-care, get away from, stop watching it. Yes. You guys need time for yourselves. Because this wasn't just something we're watching another brother of ours being murdered on TV, and we're watching it. It was true to our plight here in this country, and to a point where it was so traumatic for us that it boggles my mind how white people. I have a clip, and I'll show it in a minute, where this woman said that she was pulled over. She was driving fast. She was speeding in a school zone, and she left with a warning. And because the reason why she left with the warning is because she followed and she listened to the police officers. And you need to treat police officers like human beings, and then you'll just get a warning and stop being a victim. A white woman. You don't understand our experience. You've never had our experience. Even the act of just pulling us over in traffic is traumatic for us. And for you to sit there and make a comment about treat police officers like human beings and stop being the victim. What do you tell Black people? What is it that you're telling Black people? Again, the two Americas. White people would never fear. They don't have any fear when it comes down to a police officer. Why should they? They created that whole system of police. So there is no fear for them. And you sit and you say to someone, treat police officers like human beings. And I thought that was an oxymoron, because when you see interactions between police officers and Black people, who is treated like a human being in the process?
I just find it so much victim shaming. Like when you say stop being a victim, the definition of the word victim, the victim has no control over being victimized. That's why they are the victim. You know what I mean? Like no one chooses to be the victim. So if you are being placed in that situation, therefore the whole idea of being the victim is you don't have control over it. You can't choose to stop being a victim, no more than you chose to become a victim. So she's just ignorant. She really, and it just shows that she truly does not understand the dynamic, the history of it, what's going on. It's not about treat police officers nice or respect police officers or any of that. There's a whole history behind it. And like you said, Nikki, getting pulled over is stressful, traumatic, and anxiety. Even before the police officer gets to your car, there's already anxiety. So to say, oh, just don't feel anxiety. How does that? That's just ignorant. You know, that's what they're talking about. And it's funny because I'm actually working right now with the Coconut Creek Police Department with them talking about how can they do more for kids with disabilities because of the stigma and the things we've seen out there. You know, that case in Miami where the kid with autism, the caregiver got shot, and there are laws, and the Coconut Creek Police Department has done some phenomenal training on kids with autism. But what we're finding in Coconut Creek, just speaking for myself and what I'm reporting to them, is within the school setting, the kids tend to feel comfortable with their SROs, right? They know them by name. I've heard kids of color say, I really feel safe in this school. And they say the minute they walk out of the school, if they see a police car, they panic, they get nervous, it's a whole different thing. And so we were having a really good, honest, frank conversation about how is there even that dynamic where students of color see their SRO in one light and see the police department in another light when the SRO works for the police department. So we really need to bridge that gap, and just I did appreciate them coming to me to have that conversation. To be honest with, there's a disconnect, and we need to do something about it with kids of color and with students with disabilities.
And that example that you gave about what happened in Miami, that's one of those things about the two America and about race in America, right? Because the caretaker was Black, and the child with autism was a person that may have been Hispanic, fair skin, but they weren't dark skin, right? And the police officer just shot the caretaker, not knowing what's going on, and he was the one that was trying to help the kid. And even when the guy was like, "Why'd you shoot me?" the cop was like, "I don't know." And you know what that "I don't know" was? It was like, "Yo, you a big Black man out here with like some boy," and that's really what it was. And you know, they'll try to say that situation wasn't about race, but that situation was about race, right? Because there was nothing about what that man was doing that made you seem as though he had that child in harm's way or that he was doing something that was illegal. And then the officer comes on the scene and ends up shooting him. Thankfully, you know, the caretaker didn't lose his life. You know, thankfully he didn't lose his life, but that's the part of what's happening and why we need to.
And didn't that officer get off, Sandra, if I'm not mistaken?
Because you know it was accidental. Like, you know, there was really no intent there. You know, so he kind of didn't get fired.
He accidentally.
I suspect there was a settlement in that case. I suspect
Okay.
there was some agreements made, and that man was probably compensated for his pain and suffering and all those types of things, right? I suspect there was a settlement. And I'm not, and this isn't an effort to make it seem as though all police officers are bad. But what I think is problematic is when people don't understand that officers are coming into work with biases that they're probably not aware of, right? They're not aware of it. And so instead of trying to tell Black people how they should feel and telling us like we need to behave, because even if we behave in whatever way,
take away their bias.
If the officer is coming in with a bias, it's not gonna matter. You could be doing everything right, and they're gonna see from the lenses that you're still a threat to me. Right? So that's what we really need to address, is to have officers have a level of self-awareness about what their biases are. And if they have them, try to train it out of them,
And honestly, Sandra, I'm going to extend that to even education. I see that so often in the classroom where good intentioned teachers of all races come into the classroom with their bias and teach children out of that bias, where you will have maybe a white child come into class late and they're, hey, what's going on? Are you okay? Blah, blah, blah. A Black child comes into class late, or a Hispanic child comes into class late. Why are you coming to my class late? And I see it very often, and have my Brazilian students tell me, they've had teachers say, why don't you go back to where you came from? These children are born in the United States. They just speak Portuguese. So that bias of, oh, you speak another language, you must not be from here. That's, we really need to, throughout professionals, start looking at our own internal bias, because
it's all systemic. You know what I mean?
Yes, it really is.
Systemic. It's permeated in everything that we do. And what bothers me the most and about these two Americas is that when white people come to you and say, why do you always have to make things about race? Why is it always about race? And my response is, everything is about race.
But it's interesting that that's your response, and I really don't mean to cut you off. My response is like, why do you think it's never about race, right? Because sometimes it really isn't always about race. Like, I agree that it's not always about race, but when they say like why it has to be about race, they really want to say it's never about race, and that is not true. That is not true. That is never about race. There's some times where people aren't trying to be racist. They probably really just kind of don't like you, right? For whatever reason, whether you Black, white, green, purple, whatever, y'all energies don't match, and that's what it is, right?
Don't know it, Sandra.
The idea that some of these things are never about race, that's the problem that I have when now people that are not Black are trying to say that it's not. No, there are times when
they usually
about race.
But when they do come in and ask you those questions, it's usually centered around race. That's why my answer is it's always about race, because in the context that you're coming to ask me that question as a white person is usually about race, right? It's the context of race. And so while they come and ask, it's never a question of, hey, how can I understand what your experience is right now so we can kind of figure out where to go from here? Your question is, why do you always have to make things about race? And my follow-up response to that, saying that it's always about race, is that this is systemic. Right. I create this system, right? Black people who had no hand in creating this system at all. Right? We didn't have a seat at the table. We had no hand in creating the system, none whatsoever. Okay? Because if we did have a hand in creating this system, there would be true equity.
Yeah.
Right?
So Kay, in the comments on Facebook, did you see Cecil Roll is saying that there are teachers that have biases against students that look like them too. Absolutely. So is that part of your experience? Do you see that?
Absolutely. As equity liaison at my school, that's something that I really have been trying to address, because when I give talks about race, the automatic assumption is, oh, the white teachers are treating the Black students bad. That's not the case. We've actually done data, and we've pulled the data on which teachers are writing the most referrals. In some schools, that's true. But I pulled data in some elementary schools where it was the Black teachers referring the Black students the most. And so to me, what that showed was, that's exactly what Nikki was saying. if you went to public school in the United States, if you grew up in the United States, you have racial bias. Because I look at it like how Pavlov.
Against your own. You're saying even against your own, like people of color are also trained to think that there are people of color that are bad. But in that instance, I'm sorry.
Yeah, you have to have. How can you not? You have to have the same bias that the dominant culture is teaching. They put you in a school for 12 years and indoctrinated you. Unless you yourself or your family, you come from a very enlightened or woke family, or, you went to a college and took Afro-American history or Caribbean history, unless you are doing some self-teaching, how do you get from under that bias that has been put into your brain from the time you were 5 years old to the time you were 18 years old?
But you know what I think happens though? I think when it's like another person of color, that I don't think it becomes about race at that point. I think it actually shifts to class. I think it shifts to class, it shifts to ethnicity, and it shifts to something else, right? So you have a black teacher. Y'all can push back, but I think like it's like you have a black teacher.
Some pushback, but where you were going, that's exactly what I was thinking. Yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, because if you have like a black teacher, right, and they're probably talking down to a student, usually it's probably like a hood student. They're probably teaching at like a at-risk school, or they're an at-risk kid and that type of stuff, right? And then so then for them in their minds, they're like, because there's sometimes people of color, they make this distinction between the different kind of blackness, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, yo, that's ghetto, that's hood, you know what I mean? Like, no, I'm middle class, I'm like sophisticated, these people are ratchet, that kind of stuff. So in the black person's mind, right, it's probably racist in the way it manifests itself, but I think in their minds, they're seeing it more of like, they change it into a class thing, right? It's like, oh, that person in the lower class, that's how them ghetto people act, that's how them hood people act, that's how they act, right? So they do it like that.
But I say this, Sandra,
let me make this last point.
I don't want to say
I'm sorry, make this last point. And then when it comes to, especially kids from the Caribbean, because my parents are Haitian, I was born in the Bahamas, but I still consider myself Haitian. And I had black teachers give me a hard time too, but it was kind of like, you boat people. And I'm like, I ain't coming on the boat. I actually came here on the plane. So it was always weird where they would like call me like a boat person and all of that kind of stuff. I'm like, yo, I ain't come on the boat. I don't know what y'all talking about. But it wasn't about me being black. It was just me being like that other type of black. And that's why they, kind of treated me in that particular way.
But my question, Sandra, is if it is a child from an impoverished home who's white, are they seen as ghetto? And so that's why I feel like
they just call it, they're considered trailer trash, not trailer park trash or something like that. Not necessarily ghetto.
In my experience, when I look at the data, the trailer trash kids aren't getting referrals. So I do agree with you. I think they make this distinguishment with like, oh, I'm educated and, this child is not from a good quote unquote background, whatever. But I don't see them make that same distinction with kids who are non-Black. Okay. And they treat those kids more compassion or blah, blah, blah. Whereas like you said, the same thing, there's more harshness, there's more severe penalties.
And I don't mean to cut you, Kate, but that also goes into judges, black judges. Black judges, black judges that will
really?
Will be more harsh to Black people than they do to the white people. And again, I believe just what Sam was saying is also about that class. And also there's something to prove. When
there's some self-preservation happening there too. Self-preservation happening there too.
So that, hey, you're not going to show biases to your Black students over your white students. So you got to make sure that you just as hard, maybe even harder on the harder on the Black students than you on the white students, because you want them to see that you don't have any biases or you're not racist or whatever the case is. And that goes, this is the same thing with CEOs, judges, arbitrators, you see it. And it's just, so for me, I don't specifically feel that it's racist. I believe that it's not necessarily biases either. I think that number one, there's a lot going at play. There's a lot to unpack here. You have to prove yourself. Remember, we have to work twice as hard to get anything, to get where we got to be, right? So especially when you have a prestigious position as a judge, you don't want to come off looking like, okay, you're going to let every Black person.
Like you're soft on crime, or you're giving like people
do that. You don't want to give that impression, right? And many of our judges are elected. Not a lot of them are appointed, right?
So when they have to get reelected, and white people have to vote for them too, because it's not enough. Most of the time, it's not enough black people to vote them into office. So then you have to have that crossover appeal, right?
They do. But in education too, you have to have that crossover.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Because you know, remember, and Sandra doesn't like us using that term, but we are the minority. So there's more of them than there is of us, and we're always in a position where we have to prove. Black women especially, because there's a lot of black teachers, black female teachers. Mm-hmm. You're always on this, I gotta be the best. I gotta be where I gotta be. I wanna be, you know, so me to move up the ladder in the education system. And it's not easy in the education system to get from, you know, teacher to principal and all that. You gotta climb ladders, jump through hoops and all that other stuff or whatever. So to me, I don't really think that it's so much that it's a bias, more than, listen, self-preservation, as Sandra mentioned, and also like, I gotta be the best. And if I got to trample on some of these kids and bring some of these kids over there, or if I feel like the kid is from the hood and they're gonna be in there anyway, I'm just adding, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, there's so much to unpack with that. And so, again, it is that to America thing, because white teachers ain't got to think about that. They treat them any kind. They treat their own.
We had a whole show about how white teachers are treating folks of color, and they're allowed to get away with that.
I have the data on that too. So
and so, you know, the data, you know, and not to take away what your data shows, Kay, and data has
the number. So you said there's a lot to unpack as to why that data looks that way. But I do think, like as Cece was saying, sometimes people are shocked to hear that the mistreatment kind of comes. It can come from anywhere. It's not just one race or one specific. You would be surprised. I do have some updates, y'all, real quick while we're on education. Parents, no ESY on Monday. Don't send your children to school. Monday, July 5th, there is no school. So next week is a 3-day week.
Okay.
So that's
So C is Dr. Shellroll is still commented. She said, I think Black people in general in positions are afraid to support other Blacks publicly and would avoid appearing as if they are supporting Blacks. We have to explain why we congregate and talk in a group. Yeah, there's some truth to that too. And then the other thing with that too, especially when you're talking about like promotions, the concern is that it's usually can only be like one on the top, right? So you have that whole thing about like, how, you know, I can't necessarily look out for you because then you might be coming to take my spot because it's only going to be a few of us up here, right? They ain't going to let everybody come, right? So that's one of the things. In the comment you made about like to be the best, like for me, I don't think being the best should mean that you have to like, you know, treat a student poorly, right? Like those things shouldn't even matter at all. Part of being the best should be, you should find a way to kind of educate and communicate to all of them, right? Like there's no way that part of your job of being a good teacher should ever include you treating any student poorly, right? So, yeah.
And you know what? You guys are both right, because what I can tell you is what Nikki's saying is sort of like the old school thought. And there are a lot of people who think that and are doing that. And then what Sandra is saying is currently the reality. If you really want to do well in Broward County schools, you should be treating all kids with compassion. And if they're coming to school late or whatever, you sit and talk to them and you work with them one-on-one. We have social emotional learning, which is to combat all the biases and things that are out there. So it's it is a misconception that, if I punish these kids harsher, I'm going to move up the ladder. But that has been out there probably from when I started teaching 22 years ago. Just recently, I feel like, Sandra, what you're saying is now proven itself to be true. It's the teachers that are compassionate, take time out, get to know their kids. Maybe within like the last 8 years, you see really the school district putting a huge focus on social, emotional, individualized learning. And I see that shift in education where it's about compassion and getting to know the child rather than just discipline.
And that's also happening policing too, right?
Yes.
Because that's why they're starting with this community policing, because they're realizing that if you have properly trained police officers, because I grew up in a neighborhood where we did see some of the same police officers, but all they was doing was treating people bad. So but part of it is that they are doing this community policing, where they're getting the police officers to know the people in the community, right? Because if you do know the people that you're there to protect and serve, you're really you have more buy-in, you have more interest in protecting and serving that person. And then even the people, there's like, oh yeah, and they get to see the police officers in the community doing something different than just always arresting somebody, right? So if all the community sees like you always arresting somebody, pulling somebody over, taking them to jail, how is it that you're going to get a positive impression of like what policing looks like in your neighborhood, right? So that's important. Because I remember, like, just for me, I used to share space with this woman, and the only time we interacted was when she was complaining about something that I did, right? And one day I was like, you know what? You're going to have to tell me you like my shoes one day, just out of the blue. You have to tell me you like what I got on. You got to tell me one day that you like my shoes, because our interaction cannot continue to be negative, right? Because then that just is not going to work for me, because I'm like, every time I see you now, I'll be like, oh Lord, here she go again. She about to complain about something. But if you kind of pepper that in with some nice stuff, when you're complaining about something that I probably very well did do wrong, I can take it better, and I won't be all on the defensive, because all of our communication is negative. And that's why, the policing, they're making that shift in policing, is that people need to see cops doing something more than just arresting folks and taking them to jail. And
do you think that this shift in terms of what's going on in the school system and what's going on with the police, when do you think that this shift started? When did you really start realizing that there was a shift and that you saw there was some movement? When did you start realizing that? And I'm asking this question because I'm trying to see when I saw this evolution and this change. And honestly, I did not see it until after George Floyd, to be quite honest with you, that there was a serious highlight on making sure that the police knows the community. I mean, I did see that a little bit prior to George Floyd, take that back just a little bit, but it wasn't as aggressive as it is, as of late, right? Mm-hmm. And as far as the school thing goes, one of the things that I had a lot of criticism for is that the diversity department or group in the school lately, like maybe not lately, but to me, that whenever they did a presentation and I was on there, it was always ran by a white person. Yeah, and that bothers it bothers me because you have white people presenting something about diversity, and I just, I don't know how I feel about that. There's like this. Yeah,
it's like you want to say like, not that they can't, but should they? No, right.
But in terms of diversity, and you have well-educated people in the district who are Black that are more than capable of presenting this information and presenting it with some context, some cultural context, some experiences, and experience to really drive the message home. I'm just a little bit like, I don't know, what I'm saying? Like, and my thing is that while we are transitioning into what appears to be some common, some highlights and some realization of the racial issues we have in this country, I'm still kind of cautiously optimistic that this will be something that catches on and it grows. But I just wanted to know when did you see it and all that?
In the chat,
Dr. Sharo is making some points and comments that I'm going to talk about. But I want to answer the policing question. So when former President Obama was in office, he did a whole study about policing, right? And he generated this report about what 21st century policing should look like. And they gave the departments blueprint on how they can improve their police department, because there was a time that the police officers, how they act like they didn't have no quota. They kind of did. And really what it was is that the amount of tickets they had, the amount of people they got arrested, that's how they were promoted. So it was basically it was incentivized to give people tickets, arrest folks, because if you wanted to move up, that's what you needed to do, right? And when they said like, no, this is not the way policing should be, you're not going to get the trust from your community if this is all you're doing. And it should not be the way that people get promoted. They should get promoted for doing good police work, arresting folks when it's necessary, necessary and using their discretion when it's not. That's what should get promoted. And so there was a shift that started happening like around 2012. A lot of departments didn't take on and didn't use the report, but some of them were slowly making the change. And what I think George Floyd's situation did was saying, like, y'all need to do something, right? And then even in that, what's also happening as a result of it, because there are some officers, particularly those that have been in the department over 20 years, and they're not ready, or they don't want to make that change, or they got used to engaging in some sort of behavior that it's a bad habits that's hard to break. And then they don't want to find themselves in a situation where they may do something that they used to be able to get away with, can't get away with it now, and they're either one arrested, or at the very least they're losing their pension and their retirement. So a lot of officers are retiring. It's like for real. It's happening like all over the United States. A lot of officers are leaving the department, and there's some police departments that are going to have certain shortages in some areas because officers are leaving the department. And part of them is because they're not buying into the change, or they don't want to find themselves getting videotaped for something that might be
what police office it was where 52 police officers walked off the job after?
So that was in They did that in Rochester, New York. That was Buffalo. It was actually in Buffalo, New York. And that's how that new lady, India Walton, the one that's running for mayor, that was part of what motivated her to run for mayor, because it was in Buffalo, New York. There was a guy that was an old man that was protesting, and they knocked the old man down, and the people got mad because they arrested the officer, and those officers left. That was in Buffalo. That's what inspired India Walton to run. But Dr. Sherrill did answer the question about, like, why is it that it's white people that are probably putting on these forums to explain the diversity and all of that. She said sometimes people can receive the information better if it's someone that looks like them that's presenting the information, and that's possible.
And that's all truth right there. It is all truth, because listen, when I was watching that presentation, and they were doing it at, I can't remember what event it was the district was putting on, and they had this old white woman presenting diversity, and I was thinking to myself, sis, like, I can't really take this information from you. And then the more that I listened to her, it's like her just regurgitating information. There was no context behind it. There was no experience behind it. There was no cultural experience behind it. It was just kind of regurgitating facts. And for me, that's not diversity. That's not how you kind of present diversity or teach diversity. Diversity needs to be, it needs to move people to say, I really need to make sure that I make a point to look at something. Because at the end of the day, if it takes 90 minutes, wink, wink, y'all know what I'm talking about, to convince someone that they ain't right, that's what you have to do in order for the person to at least lead the conversation with some awareness, right? And so that I'm just kind of like, a little bit kind of skeptical about. I hope the district does a better job of trying to,
I will tell you, Nikki, and I mean, I'm an equity liaison, so I don't work for that department, but I was trained by that department to work in my school. And I have heard, let's put it that way, that department was tasked with being more diverse themselves. So let's say that. I'm going to say it like that. So that they had diversity in their own department of all races. And so I do understand, is it Dr. Sherrill's point? Because delivering information to my own staff, it was true. There were some staff members who are ready to hear about diversity from me. And then there were other staff members who had to hear it from the people that she said, Kay just said it. They had to hear it from people who looked more like them, who they were friends with, who they maybe had more of a trust with. And then because people are very unwilling, and I shouldn't say people, educators that I, in my experience, are very unwilling to reflect on themselves as being part of the things that need to be changed. You would think we do, but we've been trained, we're educated, we take these classes, and now someone's saying, could it be your bias as to why you're not reaching as many kids? I think that was hard for a lot of people to hear, and they needed to hear it from someone that they trusted. Right. So I'm okay with that, as long as, again, sometimes it is the white guy, sometimes it needs to be a black female, sometimes a black male, someone Hispanic, Caribbean. We just got to mix it up, because the most thing is we're just trying to We're just trying to deliver.
Yeah, and so and Dr. Sherrill says that it's not, diversity is not always about race. That's absolutely, because remember I said about that teacher that's also Black, her issue with the student could be about class. It could also be about ethnicity, and all of those things, you know, matter, right? Like all of those things need to be addressed and dealt with. So yeah, so it's not always about race. It can be about class. It could definitely be about ethnicity. It could be about gender. You know, all those different
gender,
types of absolutely.
You know, like sexual identification, all kinds of things. You would be surprised. So I had something that I sent you ladies, since we're still kind of a little bit on that critical race theory. I've really been thinking about this because it's just truly getting on my nerves. And the reason it's getting on my nerves is I keep coming back to what I said when he first, you know, made the change in the Department of Education. I was like, nobody teach this. This doesn't exist. This is not a class. So banning critical race theory being taught in schools is like banning me from braiding my daughter's hair. I don't have a daughter. So what do you like? WTF? What are you talking about? Clearly, you cannot braid your daughter's hair. Okay. I don't got a daughter. And so I really realized that, as we all know, this is about silencing us. About taking away our voice, but also erasing us from history. Slowly.
The bottom line is they don't want their innocent white babies to know the truth. They don't want them to know the truth on what this country is about, what was it founded on, how they mistreated human beings, and how they continue to perpetuate the foolery. They just don't want their kids to understand.
So I think what we can do is maybe we should start asking some of our legislators to propose legislation that says truth in education. Truth in education, right? Whatever you're teaching, you need to be telling the truth. Because what was the meme I sent you? If they put as much in, it says, if people attacked white supremacy like they are attacking critical race theory, there would be no need for critical race theory.
Right. Yeah.
And so we need to, now I'm more determined to get people to tell their story. I feel like whether you're LGBTQ, whether you're Black, whether you're Indigenous, whether, you know, you are Hispanic, Afro, Latino, whatever, it is clear that a subset of our society wants to take away your story. I think at us being in the minority groups of people, not in the minority because we're not in Broward, but, you know, minority groups, I think we need to start being more creative. How are we going to get our story out there? Because we could keep fighting these textbook producers who are predominantly white and they just won't put it in the textbook. What are we going to do? I think we need to take this as an opportunity to figure out how are we going to get our history out there? Maybe we need to start getting the kids to make more YouTube videos, or I think we just got to push it forward because
and then the other thing that we really need to do too is elect people that's on board, right? Because remember, we have that. So in the legislature in Washington, D.C., there are 535 folks there, right? So you got 535 people that are making decisions for over 300 million folks, right? That's what we need to think about it in terms of that. You got 535 legislators that are making decisions for 300 million people. You need to, and it's less than, matter of fact, it's usually less than that because it's like, you know, because that filibuster isn't in place.
Right.
Oftentimes you have like 15 people that are really just fighting against everything, and they're making decisions that's impacting the entire country. When you think about it like that, you were like, you know what? We got to get rid of them 15 people that's over there causing all of this problem. So absolutely, we can do YouTube videos. We can do all of that stuff. We can educate folks on our own. But we need to say, you know what? You pick out those folks that's out here talking this foolishness, and they don't have to keep their jobs. You can be part of the office, and we need to do that.
But Sandra,
be part of the process.
Everybody's life.
We need to also start writing down our own history because where is the textbook publisher? And I'm sure there's some that exist that we can purchase books for our schools. You know, like we need to really broaden our how we approach this so that we're not boxed in. Because right now they're trying to box us in.
So we're gonna tie this back to participation, and I'm gonna share my screen because I want to show a video.
Okay.
That's what we do. We've been doing this lately so people can understand, put things in context. Okay. I think I cleared up I'm going to share it now. I think I cleared up. Oh, hold on, let me see, make sure that I have it. Just so you all can understand that, my privacy setting is on. Well, continue talking because let me get my privacy setting on so we think or whatever. But I wanted to kind of bring into context on on why it's important to be part of the process.
No, and I think, Sandra, we have started doing that. I would say like maybe in the last, and Nikki, maybe the last, 5-10 years, we've started to see a lot of movies come out about events from Black culture that were not covered in textbooks. Mm-hmm. We're starting to see more books being written about our history, telling our story, even like something like Moonlight, story of a Black gay man. You never even heard about that, And so I think we just need to continue to do that. I would love for us to even sponsor something. Like maybe we need to sponsor a contest or something. I don't know. I'm just thinking of stuff now. But where our viewers could tell their story.
Well, imagine, the professor at North Carolina, Chapel Hill, that was involved with the 1619 Project. Remember, she was trying to bring light to the truth of Black people in America. And what ended up happening to her? They tried to take her job from her. Right? They would not give her tenure. Right. So there are people out there that's putting in that work, but they're facing a lot of pushback and a lot of consequences that's affecting their livelihood. Right? Mm-hmm. And then so what does that do? Because I was going to say, Massa is putting folks in their place. I'm like, don't do that. So what it does, and it instills fear in others, right? There are other folks that really would want to do the same thing, but they're like, listen, I ain't in no position to like not have no job, right? So it will make and oftentimes I think they do use some folks as an example, right? To kind of curb the behavior of everybody else, right? And we see that, and we saw that with that professor who did the 1619 Project. But because so many people spoke up about her, now the state of North Carolina Board of Regents, they're revisiting that decision to not give her tenure, because we also need to know, as people of color, our voice, we do have power too, right? And we need to start utilizing that power in the right way, because again, a lot of these Democratic officials, they cannot get elected unless we do our part. And since we know that, we need to understand our power and use it in a way to put people in positions that will do what's best for our community and everyone.
Absolutely.
You got it, Nick?
I think I might have gotten it now.
Yeah.
Okay. Is it showing? Because it says it's sharing right now.
I don't see it yet.
You don't see it? Mm-hmm. Oh, wait a minute. Let me see. Uh-oh. What do you see? Nothing?
No.
Screen share, right?
I'm not sure why that's not working. Let me go look. Yeah, I'm checking on YouTube. I don't see it either.
You gave me access, right?
I believe so. Let's see. I don't know what this stuff. What did I do? Yeah, you should be able to.
All right. So let me try it one more time. Oh, wait a minute. So I'm gonna try it.
So while Nikki tries to work on her video, Kay, tell us what else you have in the disability.
Okay, so I have I'm encouraging all of my special needs parents out there to go and check with your local police department. Now I know initially, because of everything we've been talking about, this might be a little scary. However, I do know of 2 cities thus far, Coconut Creek and Pembroke Pines, who have a special needs registry. So it is up to you as a parent to decide whether that is for you. But I will say there may be some benefit to having police, fire, and emergency know that people in your household have disabilities. At the very least, know those services are available. So I encourage you to check those out. I'm also encouraging you once again to sign up for swimming lessons. I know that the city of Miramar and Pembroke Pines have both group lessons and private lessons available. I'm gonna go ahead and tell you, Miramar's a little bit cheaper than Pembroke Pines, so because I mean, you know. So
and wherever we can get the cheapness, honey.
Right, you got it. So with Miramar, it's the city of Miramar, and right at Regional Park. And with Pembroke Pines, it is the YMCA of Pembroke Pines. And so both offer. Please, please, please. You know that 64% of drownings are of Black people. So it is so important that our children learn to swim and like swim safety. And even if it's just survival skills, like how to turn over and float, that's better than nothing. Absolutely. So look into that. And some of them even have like scholarships, grants, coupons, and all things to try to save you money.
Yeah, so I'm gonna shout out Little Swimmers. Yeah. My kids did swimming lessons with them, and they have a serious discount if you're for students for children with disabilities, right? I think when I did the lessons for my son, his might have been like 150, and for the child with disability, it was like 85. I'm not saying that that's what their prices are now because that was like a number of years ago, but there's a serious discount for when you're giving lessons to a child with disability. So Little Swimmers does that too.
Well, I'll put some of these in the chat after the show.
It's important. And they teach them to swim in like a week. At least if it's not completely swimming, it's water safe. There's a scale of like, from like 1 to 10 on how the person can swim, and they will get you at least a 4 or 5 in like 2 weeks. Right.
Like, you will not drown. You will be able to. Yeah.
You won't drown. You can go into the deep end and find your way to float or get to the edge of the pool, which is what's very important. And then you move into strokes after that. So they have a program, and they're very good. And if you're a teacher, you get an additional discount because you're a teacher, and then you get one if you have a child with disabilities. So
okay. Oh yeah, let me go ahead and promote that. Miramar, City of Miramar gives discounts to Broward County residents. YMCA of Pembroke Pines also has a teacher discount, 25% off. So they're giving a family rate of $75 a month, and you get everything free, like even that cool aquatic park over in Pembroke Pines. So check that out. Sandra and Nikki, I just saw this in the Sun Sentinel today. Now, you know this governor went through hell and high water, and on June 1st, the first day of Pride Month, he signed the bill saying that transgender students, but I did not realize it is limited to female transgender students cannot participate in women's sports.
So it's male to female, male to female.
Male to female, but not the other way around. So, anyway. However, today, and I'm going to say kudos to you, young lady, a 13-year-old girl went ahead and filed her lawsuit against the governor over the transgender school athlete ban. And this young lady is from Broward County. You do you, girl. Because, and I read the article, and I thought it was a very well-written article because they talked about how this young lady had been participating in sports ever since elementary and middle school, participating in girls' sports, and had been taking like the hormone therapy. So at this point, they were saying like medically, there was no advantage. And I just think I'm just proud of this young lady for standing up for her rights, honestly. I was like, I know people feel different ways on the issue. I honestly don't have enough data to give a real opinion, but I will say this. For someone who has been participating in, girls' sports for 5-6 years, now the governor takes away your opportunity to play in high school and college. I'm proud of her for standing up for her rights. So that was in the Sun Sentinel today, and I thought that might be interesting. I encourage our viewers to go ahead and put something in the chat. Let us know how you feel about this issue and about this young lady filing her lawsuit.
So I'm sorry, Nikki. So when you're ready with the video, I can add it to the screen. Okay. So you have to, that's why I was telling you, get the video together, and then I will add the video to the screen. You can't just be, you know what I'm saying? So prepare the video, and then I'll add it to the screen.
All right. So
I'm all out of my notes, so now y'all got to go.
All right.
All right. So let me do it. Hold on.
So once you have it ready, I can add it to the screen, and then they can see it. So I showed you what would happen, Yeah. So you need to have it ready, and we can go ahead and add it.
So I just did that. Try and see if that works.
Okay.
I don't know what this is.
So that's your screen.
Okay, but how do I get to the? It's just too much going on. I don't know what this is. Hold on, wait a minute. So it's hard for me to do it like that because if I get on the screen, I can't share it. Hold on.
You can't click onto it. That's why I think you have to have it set up, like have the video playing, and then I will add it.
Right, but I have to switch. I have to go to another page to do it. You get what I'm saying? This is on one page. How do I get it to be on?
Then I don't know.
Hold on, wait.
I really don't know.
All right.
Sorry, y'all, for the technical stuff. We're new to this, and we're trying something different. So I can't tell you. I mean, we can practice that and have it done like ready for the next time or something. But I don't know how to.
I wonder.
I just know like once we have it queued, then I can bring it up. But
right.
I can't tell you otherwise. All right. So there's a lot going on. We have some stuff. Bill Cosby got released from.
Yes.
Well, today, his conviction for all of the charges that he had have been overturned. Yeah. And once that happens, I don't think they can refile those charges against him anymore because he's protected against. Well, is it double jeopardy? Because they
said that on CNN. You were right that they could not.
Yeah, so double jeopardy has attached. So they can't charge him again for those offenses. So that means that that's over. And before we started, I was told that Donald Rumsfeld has since had also passed away today too. So y'all got a moment of silence for him, if you like. Yeah, but yeah, so that and the Bill Cosby thing is really controversial. Because
Sandra, you want to explain the legal aspect for people who may not understand how you said when you first heard the case, you were shocked that.
Yeah, when I first heard the case, I had concerns, and almost every attorney I know had concerns that they were going to use information that was part of a non-disclosure agreement in order for them to, and they were going to use it at trial. And that was absolutely unheard of. I'm like, that's the whole point in people entering, settlements and having non-disclosure agreements signed is that information is never going to become public and it won't be used against them. And so when the court had ruled that they can do that in his case, I was like, this what we doing? Like, I was always baffled by the fact that was allowed. And I was like, if he fights this, I can't see how they will let that type of precedent stand, because what it does, it will prevent people from ever settling and forever signing NDAs, because then that would mean that they have absolutely no value whatsoever, right? So what the court did today, the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania did today, I'm not surprised, and I really do believe it's the right thing. Unfortunately, it's for this type of case that has such a sensitive issue at the heart of it. It's a sensitive issue at the heart of it. But from a legal standpoint, the fact that the court says that, no, you cannot use information in a non-disclosure agreement against someone, it's right. And that part of it is right. Again, I understand that it's unfortunately from a very sensitive case that people are really conflicted on how they feel about that. But that ruling on not being able to use an NDA in a criminal case, that's the right thing to do. That's absolutely the right thing to do.
Okay, try it now and see if that works.
So that part of it is the right thing to do. So here it is.
Hey, there you go. We got it.
All right. So this is back to critical race theory, and this is Bruce Jenner.
He's talking to Faulkner. What's her name? What's that girl's name?
That is.
She's on Fox. That's the young lady from Fox.
Okay, so this is who she's talking to, and this is why we need to be part of the participation in the political system, okay?
Well, I was just watching that, and I feel for those parents. If I become governor there, I will do everything to fight critical race theory being taught to our children. This generation coming up is probably the least racist generation, the most open-minded generation in the history of our country. We don't need to set them back and try to teach them racism. And so I am totally 100% against that. The reason I'm running for governor is because I'm standing up. I don't like what's happening in our state. It's been horrible, the decline of our state. And I'm proud of those people down there that they're standing up. They're trying to make a difference. And I encourage that.
Okie dokie. So,
really, that's all I'm gonna say. Really,
that's what we're doing. The man said that he don't want to teach children racism. I'm just so confused. I'm so confused by his statement.
You know, I'm not going to comment on her ignorance because I agree with Dr. Shah Role. Maybe nobody ever explained to Caitlin what critical race theory is. I question how she thinks critical race theory teaches racism. So I'm just going to say that was ignorant. But now, again, I know more about Caitlin than I knew before.
And all that shows that how we have to be real careful who we put in positions of power, right? Because they can do things that impact generations. Okay.
And if you notice, she not at one time explained what critical race theory was.
Exactly. Never said what they thought it was.
Said what it was and didn't say why she was against it.
Right.
That it taught racism and she didn't clarify. And I think what irritates me the most is that the journalist didn't even push back and say, well, what is critical race theory and what is it that you don't want that's causing you to be so virulently, against it?
Well, I mean, she was on Fox. She was on Fox News. They weren't going to do that. That's kind of not what they do.
But what's amazing to me? This coming from the mouth of someone that has how many Black grandchildren? Okay, then.
About 6, 4, 5, 6, something. I don't know.
I'm just gonna sit and wait for it. As my grandfather used to say to me, he said, Calibra, don't get upset. Just keep on living. It'll take care of itself.
But I think that's why he believed that this is the least racist generation, because almost all of his daughters, stepdaughters, they all have children with Black men, right?
Well, so least doesn't mean no racist,
right? But I think if you want to try to explain what's happening, that's probably why he believed that, because all of the girls have children with Black men, except for the oldest one. But
But like I'm married to a man and had a baby. I'm not saying they don't need to teach biology. Like how does, because people aren't racist, they don't need to learn about our history? That has one thing has nothing to do with the other.
Or just learn about American history, because if they would just teach American history, we won't have this conversation. Just tell the truth. Tell the whole story.
That's what I'm saying. We need legislation for truth in education, period.
Just tell the whole story. You won't have to worry about critical race theory and all that, because what critical race theory is about is really showing about how race has an influence and impact on people's lives. And, you can't ignore it, right? So if you would just tell the story, give credit to people who really did, folks, explain everybody's contribution, stop saying that the Native Americans freely gave up their land, just tell the truth. And, we won't have some of these problems that y'all talk about.
Did you all see that general? And I'm probably going to get it wrong, and I apologize for anyone in the military for not doing a better job of knowing his rank. But I believe he was a general speaking to Congress, and he was speaking to that nincompoop from North Florida. And
the one who has trafficking charges against him. Who you talking about?
Sex with an underage girl.
I'm talking about
underage. The 17-year-old he paid to go with him on a plane. That one. That's who you talking about.
Congressman
state lines.
Congressman.
The whole 17-year-old. That man right there.
I love the general's answer, because he said, I've studied Mein Kampf, but I'm not a Nazi. But I wanted to understand what was that about. He said that he wants to understand critical race theory. And then he went on to say, which I love, he goes, and I also want to understand white hate.
Yeah.
That was strong. And this is, for those who didn't see it, this is a white man who's
I do have the clip. We can show the clip next time.
Show that, because I thought that was so powerful.
Yeah.
As a leader of our military saying, he goes, I want to understand why people stormed the Capitol.
Exactly. That's why you want to understand it, because and everyone should want to understand that, because
I want to understand
what's going on with them, for them to think like that's the reaction that you reacted that way. Something really going on with you for you to think that that's what you think you needed to do.
Mm-hmm.
I think really, as a country, we don't have to agree with it. I'm not going to become a white supremacist, but I do want to try to understand, like, what was going on with that. How did y'all get from the
Capitol?
How did you get to that?
That was unbelievable.
Yeah.
Would you ladies agree that critical race theory can kind of give us and give people in general an idea of why there's two Americas?
it can help you. It's more of an acknowledgement to help you understand. Because there's another word that's also that's part of that whole realm that came out of it is this idea of intersectionality, right? About how about Black women and the type of racism, they not only do they encounter racism, oftentimes they'll encounter sexism too, right? And it's like, well, how do you explain it? What do you ascribe it to? Is it because of her gender? Is it because of her race? And the reality is like sometimes it's because of both, right? Because you have a situation where women have jobs and Black men have jobs, right? So you're like, well, it can't be about race sexism because white women are in positions of power in this company all the time. And then they'll tell that it's not about race because we have a Black guy that's the CEO of the company, right? But then they don't have a Black woman there, right? But they're saying like, it's not racism because we got Black people here. It's not gender because we have a white person here, but Black women face a different experience, and that's the whole item, the intersectionality, where race and gender can have an impact on a person's ability to get promoted and to have certain positions of power, right? And that's what critical race theory wants you to understand is like how that plays into all the different systems that exist in the United States.
And my thing is that and I think that we need to make sure everybody understands that this is what happens when those who are in power take an idea and turn it into a narrative, and now critical race theory is such a bad thing. When all it is just the truth, education,
and the explanation.
That's all that it is.
It's American history.
So you have parents who will go to a school board meeting that's not even discussing critical race theory. I can't remember what state it was, and they were all there protesting and basically saying, "I'm not a racist if I don't want to teach my children critical race theory." Sis, do you know what that is? Can you explain? And not one parent at those meetings, when I looked at the tapes, explained what critical race theory is. They had no idea.
Because they don't know.
They couldn't give it a sentence. They couldn't break it down. They had no idea. None. But you're fighting for your kid not to learn something. You don't even know what it is.
You don't even understand it.
You don't even understand it.
And my thing is, I went to school, Miami-Dade County Public Schools. Not ratting on anybody, but went to school from K to 12, right? Graduated from Miami-Dade County Public Schools. Never learned about Hispanic heritage. Never learned about Hispanic history. Never learned about anybody Hispanic in Miami-Dade County in the 1980s. Went all the way to college and had to, again, take a class on my own because I wanted to better myself. It wasn't until I was in my master's program learning about international business that I learned the history of the Caribbean. My neighbors didn't know anything about their history. Learned about Haiti, learned about Jamaica, learned about, Dominican Republic and all the other islands, learned about South America, learned about Central America. This is when I'm in my 20s? And I had grown up around Caribbean, Hispanic, Afro-Latino, all these people, my actual community. It's a disservice.
Very much.
I grew up and didn't know about my neighbors. I feel like I absolutely appreciate my neighbors, appreciate their culture, understand their heritage. I can celebrate their heritage. It doesn't make me Jamaican, Haitian, Nicaraguan, Venezuelan. I'm still a Black, just plain old Black American. However, I feel like I'm more educated and I can appreciate people's cultures and what they go through. Also, learning the history helps me better understand my own history, right? I started looking into the history of Central America, understand the role that the United States played in the development of some of those countries, Panama, Nicaragua. I started looking at Haiti and Dominican Republic. In school, I never learned that was one island. I never learned about, I never learned about the revolution and how Haiti was the first independent Black nation, right? I'm a Black student and no one even said it, not one peep. In a way, I feel like I was deprived of a full and rich education that would have helped me in my community. And that to me is also how critical race theory falls in. It is a part of just regular history that people need to know. I feel like we have a responsibility, especially in South Florida, to be teaching about the culture of people that live in our community.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. I didn't learn about critical race theory until I was doing my master's.
See, You see?
And even in undergrad and when I was doing my bachelor's, I wasn't taught that. That wasn't something. It's not until you get into the higher levels that they start kind of breaking down critical race theory. And I think it's a shame. It's a shame that kids are not able to understand and learn, because you know what? If you don't learn from your past, you're doomed to repeat your failures in your future. It's important that young kids, yes, the white children, understand what this country is about. That way they will bring a generation of at least some sort of equity and equality and some collaboration.
And there's some other reason why that's important, right? You know, people, you need to know a full person, right? So part of what happens is that oftentimes you'll meet folks like, you know, and the only thing they know about Black people is like the negative stereotypes or the negative images that they've seen on television. So if you can balance that out just a little bit, you know, we may not have some of these types of problems, right? We may not have some of these type of problems, because even if you're just watching television, you're watching this one, you're only getting one idea, one impression about Black people. And some people grow up in towns, because I went to a school that was 4% Black, so most of the people there were not Black, right? And there were people that I was the first Black person that they met in their life. Not like the first one that they had an interaction with, because we had, you know, advisors, people on campus that were Black, but in terms of like a Black person that they sat in the same room with and had like a real conversation, I was the first Black person that they met. And I was just kind of like, wait, what? But that's the reality. And of course, folks create their parents did not have to raise them in an environment that was not multicultural or that only had white people. But the reality is that they were raised that way, right? So the only thing they saw at that time, some of them, was television, because I also went to school, people who never watched television in their life, all they did was read books. But even if you have a person that the way they're going to learn about everybody else is through reading, you have to have books that have positive images of people of color. It can't be the only thing they know is that they used to be slaves, right? You know what I'm saying? And then the only other Black people they learn about is Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King. Right. That cannot be all they know about Black people. So tell the truth and tell the full story. So yes, there are some Black people that do some very terrible things, and then there are some Black people who've done very great things and have made major contributions to this country, and they should all be acknowledged. And that's why you need to do that. You need to teach that to everybody, right? You know, you need to teach that to everybody. And when we're talking about learning, I remember, so when you're learning about like slavery in school, they always tell you that John Brown, remember the abolitionist John Brown, was crazy and he had mental illness. That's how you learn about him when you're a kid in school. So the one person that was trying to free the slaves, right? He's taught in the history book as a crazy man with mental health issues, right? And then you get to college and you're learning this, and you're like, well, the man wasn't crazy. He was just trying to say you should not enslave people. But that's part of the problem. They won't even tell the truth about, you know, the one person who's trying to liberate enslaved folks. They teach you that he was a crazy man with mental health issues, and then it's not until you're older and you're really able to get the information you be like, that man wasn't crazy. That man was trying to free enslaved folks, right?
And they teach you that the Native American just gave away all their land.
Just gave it away. Just like, go ahead,
they teach that in fourth grade. Teach that in fourth grade. Teach fourth graders like, oh, the Native Americans, oh, they just turned over. They just wanted to share all their stuff. Right? Okay. I mean, come on. But you know what? We're going to wrap up because we've gone over time. And we really want you all to come back, because next week, there's a couple people who were on the chat that wants to come on with us next time. We're going to make sure that we add them on, because we want to have a really serious conversation. Yes. And I just have to say, I love us so much. When I say I love us so much. And I know that we can be just beyond great. And we just have to be part of the process. We just have to be part of the political process. And I want us to be more engaged. It's so important. It's like, you all don't understand. Like, there's states that have put in legislation just to suppress your vote. This is how much they know that we are powerful. So I want us to continue on this conversation. And before we leave, I'd like to share my screen one more time, because I love us so much. And I sent out a message to Sandra. This is a lady who took just her sitting on her couch, singing a song about taking a nap. But this is us, and this is how we roll. And they've since taken her video and they've dubbed it several times with different people adding on to it. So I just wanted to share it with you all and let you know that we're
gonna do our final thoughts and we're gonna end on that one, right? Like we just literally gonna end the show with that video. We'll say our final shots and we'll end the show with that video.
All right. So final thoughts is for me is that I love us. I want us to be politically participants in this process. I want us to be aware of what's going on. This is why we do what we do. Those who have not taken their shots, please continue to wear your mask and use your do social distancing. The variant is out there, and it's a very dangerous one. So please be careful. Those who have taken their shots, we please ask you to take care of others by still wearing your mask, and please keep this social distance, because even though you've gotten your vaccine, you still can catch the virus. And we just want to make sure that we take care of us, because you know what? This virus has disproportionately, again, affected more the people of color than it did others. We have died more. And so I'm all about making sure we're all safe and careful. It's the summer. Please be careful on the roads because the kids are out. Yes, they're out. They should be home, but they're out. Be mindful of the babies out there. Be mindful of the lakes behind you. Make sure that you take care of your neighbor. If you see the kids doing something, be that person, because it's us. We're used to the village thing. Don't be afraid. I know some people we don't want no lawsuits, but just be mindful and pay attention. You don't have to watch the news every day, but get some of the highlights just so you can make sure that you are aware of what's going on and be versed of what this government is doing, your local and your federal government. That's my 2 cents.
Okay, I'm gonna jump in. So Sandra, you can finish it up. I guess first thing I want to say is just prayers to the community in Surfside. I missed it last week.
Right.
My son turned 18, so I wasn't able to be here. But since then, just a catastrophe has happened, and my heart goes out to those people who are just having to endure this every day as they report on it. You realize so many other ways that it has affected people in our community. And so my heart goes out to them, and just prayers for them, and just to get them through this process. And I hope that, and what I do believe is happening, that we are able to make some reform in our laws and in our building code and the way that we conduct things so that we can keep people safe going forward. And I will say, I think Mayor Daniela Levine Cava is doing an amazing job. She has proven that she was the right pick. And
absolutely.
So I'm proud for her. She is a true hero in this situation, but also thank you to all the first responders who are out there. To the parents of our special needs kids and our special needs adults, this week I signed my son who just turned 18. I know I'm telling my age. Oh my gosh, Jason, can you believe that? The boy's 18. I signed him up for CARD. And I know I've mentioned it a couple of times, but people, I'm telling you, CARD is where it's at. Please make sure you do that. They have classes. They have live Zooms that Dylan can go on, and you go and get some recipes and they all cook together. So it's fun type of things. They have webinars. I mean, it's just so much support for you. And we know that, I've said before on here, being the parent of a special needs child can be isolating sometimes. So just knowing that there is a community, that I'm lucky. I have Nikki I can call and vent to, and Sandra who knows my walk, but not everybody has that. And, honestly, it took me so many years to find them. CARD provides you with a community and a support group, and they do have a group for parent, a Black parent support group. So I encourage you to look into that. And again, keep your children safe. If you talk to your local police department and see what they're doing to educate their officers about kids with autism and kids with disabilities. If you have a registry and you want to sign up, do that. But if not, don't hesitate to ask those questions, because it is so important that the people who represent you and represent your community know that you, as a parent of special needs children, have needs too. So reach out to them, reach out to your legislators, always make your needs be known, reach out to your local commissioners, and just, stand up for your kids. Go ahead, Sandra.
Absolutely. You know, so I'm always going to stick to my point. Elections matter. And we're continuing to see this. And I have to say, you know, there are people that are complaining about Joe Biden already. I mean, I'm not saying he's perfect, but I'm telling you, I feel less stressed.
Yes,
that he's now our president, right?
Way less.
Remember in 2017, when the last occupant of the office, we were like, I'm an attorney and I practice mainly immigration law, right? So when his first month in office, he did the Muslim ban, the wall ban, the this, that, or whatever. So he literally turned my life like upside down, right? In my practice, just turned it upside down. And I was stressed from like day 20 until he left, right? And now, like today, there's some different cases that are coming on the immigration front. They're doing some different things with the courts. They're hiring judges. You know, there was a lot of bad law that came out of that last administration that they're getting rid of. You know, we're just like, thank you, Lord. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're making it easier. There was a time when you needed to call to get some information. You couldn't get through, you couldn't call, you couldn't do jack. And now they're like, y'all don't gotta call, because you would call and they'll say your whole time is 1 hour and 54 minutes. You're like, I can't be on hold for hours. Now they're like, oh, we have this email address, send us an email, and when we get to it, we'll send you a response. That's an administration that's trying to make things happen, that's trying to be cooperative, that's trying to make it easy. If people have something that they're eligible for, let them have it, right? Just let them have it. Don't try to wear folks down and make them give up and throw their hands up. So I have to tell you that really elections matter. And again, not to say that the Democratic Party doesn't have faults and flaws and shouldn't be criticized for some of the things that they're doing, but I have to tell you, at least in my world and my space and the things that I've done, this is a welcome change. And I see and I'm living the reality that elections matter, and the person that you put in power is very important, and it has great impact. Fortunately, you know, the types of laws that happened during that administration, they can get reversed. There's some things that were done. It's not going to be as easy for us to see the changes, but you know, elections matter on the local level for sure. You know, in that instance, the presidential election matter, and it also matters on the local level. I live in one of those great cities that all of our elected officials are like the best in Broward County, so it definitely matters. You know, so there's a race that's happening, a special election for the District 20 race. You know, in April, we lost the great Alcee Hastings, and there are a number of candidates that's running for that position. And I implore all of you guys to get to know these individuals, and you know, your vote matters, and really make a very educated vote. And when you decide who it is that you're going to vote for, I'm not telling anybody anything about who to pick, but just be informed about the candidates in that race, because that election is very, very important, right? So that's my thing. Elections matter, and your vote also matters.
So listen, as Black people, we are very tired sometimes, and we have to go get some rest, right? So we are going to leave it. And listen, self-care is very, very important, especially for Black people with our traumas in this country. So we're going to leave you with this wonderful video from Hushi Najee. That's her handle on TikTok as well as on Instagram. Go follow her. This sister can sing, and she has a voice on her, okay? But the way she flipped this song, everybody gonna go to bed after that.
Are you gonna show the version about when it became church, or are you gonna show the original version? I think you should show I think you show the last version about how they built on it and made it a church.
You want us to show the original, the last one the
last one that had it like where she was singing and the other people joined in and created a choir.
I didn't send you that one. I sent hers completely, the first one. The other one is on Joy.
Because I thought you want to see that one. You tagged me on the post with Joy Ann Reed.
Yeah,
and Joy Ann Reed had
Joy Ann Reed's Instagram. She'll have a full version where they build on it. It is amazing.
It's amazing. The buildup is amazing.
The buildup is amazing because I should have shown that one because it's all Black people coming in.
That's the best one.
That is the best one.
This is good too.
Wait a minute, I could find it. But if you want me to,
it's the best one. It's absolutely incredible on like how and the song with like just very few words, you know, and it ended up being like it was church on Sunday.
Let me see if I can find.
It ended up being church on Sunday.
Listen, they had them. Okay, I think I might have to. I think I might find it. Hold on a second. I think I might get it. Yep, here it is. She posted it. Is this one? Let's see. No, let me go back.
It's gonna be her, two other young ladies, and then the guy with the Bible.
When I tell you I love us, I can't. We just come and we just take things and we just y'all just don't understand. Let's see.
It was on Joy's page, and it had she had 10 different versions, and it was the last one that was absolutely incredible.
It was beyond incredible. So okay. I think I got it. Let's see if it's up. Here we go. Let's see. Yep, I think I got it. It's taking its time to load. Mm-hmm. All right. So whenever you're ready.
All right, guys. So we're gonna end on this and have a great week. But it's worth the wait. I'm adding it to the stream. It's worth the wait. Got it?
Is it there?
Yeah, I think it's up, but I don't know if that's the one, because usually when I see it, it has like all 4 people on it.
Oh, right.
Yeah, it's the one that has all 4 of them.
I wonder if this is the one, because that's the one that she posted. Let me see if I press it. I don't even hear it though. Why is this not?
Yeah, that's the original version of it.
No, it has the 4 things on it. You see it?
Oh yeah, so scroll over. Yeah, scroll over.
I know, but it's not. Oh,
you don't have the sound.
Hold
there we go.
We got to start all over. So let me bring this back. Hold on one second. That's her pictures. I'm sorry. We're gonna have to go back and see if we could get out of this, and
we'll be better next time, y'all. But it's definitely worth it.
We promise. This is
right there, Nick. There you go.
I'm about to go lay down. Yeah. Go lay down. Go. Lay down. I'm about to go lay down. I'm about to go lay down. Look at your love and say, go lay down. Go lay down. Yeah. Go lay down. Go lay down. Go lay down. Hey, go lay down. Go lay down.
So that's people going to lay down. That's us, and this is the second one.
Let's go to the last one, because we're holding people up. Let's go all the way to the last one. Not that one. Not that one. It's the not that one.
I'm about to go.
It's
I'm about to go.
This one.
Hallelujah.
Yeah.
Blessed be the name of our Lord and Savior. Go lay down. Go lay down.
Lay down.
It's getting late in the evening. I know the sun is going. If you have your Bibles, turn with me to Ecclesiastes 4:9. And when you turn it over to him, you know you can just lay on down and just rest. Watch out there now. And the Bible reads, if you have it, reading from the King James. Lay down. Get down. Yeah.
That's the best.
They are amazing, okay? And
I
so
love it.
we need to go lay down and get
Go
some
lay
rest.
down.
And we'll see you all back next week on Wednesday. We love you, and we're in this together, right? We're in this together.
Yes.
All right. So go lay down or do whatever you're trying to do. All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone. Bye.